This real-side experience would include the presence of a small cat, impressions suggesting the same cat in fact that featured with a fox in a previous real-side experience I shared, were accompanied by them and a stepping-up reptilian magician, so I had the objective to access a mysterious island. The fox and the cat, the same cat now featuring in this more recent real-side experience, although as Earth-based animal forms, were not, however, forms prior to the creation of the secondary personal self, where the isness directly animates through such forms, but forms in fact where the secondary free will idea generating self had been established, and these were simply then the outer forms these beings chose to assume. Impressions revealing that both the fox and cat were beings very much setting an intent with the ears, deciding to step up and assist in whatever capacity they were able, and that both were beings of significance, in that they had key roles to play in the unfolding galactic situations the new friends and various aware body types are involving themselves with. As the process of awareness is a facing and releasing of all idea agreements and attachments of the consciousness, this will progressively render each individual taking such a process on more indomitable in creation, affording them a greater survivability, as among the ideas being released will be those in relation to others, which dictate the abilities of others to harm or even eliminate us. For a simulated situation to play out where a being can harm me, such an effect can only be so if I have installed in my consciousness the agreement that this can take place. As absent of the ideas, then no effect can follow, and try as another might to harm me, they will be unable, their efforts nullified. All beings, on their respective awareness processes, will be at various stages of this consciousness facing and releasing. Some will be susceptible to attacks from certain beings, where others may not, etc., all according to the agreements each individual has as yet unreleased, and in relation to whichever being it is. Very often then, new friends and other awareness becoming beings will be assigned certain assignments which they can execute without hindrance or harm, and on occasion new friends may be assigned to operate in a protecting capacity over others, where the agreements these others still maintain render them vulnerable. But just as we must have agreements present where others can assume the roles as our abusers, we also must extend agreement permission that others can assist and protect us. Really then, we are deciding our every abusive experience and those where we are assisted based entirely on the agreements in our consciousness. As the deciders, we choose our unfolding movies and provide the roles others can assume if they so decide within them. For in this real side experience, Val, Jeremy and myself were in a protecting capacity of the cat that had featured in the mysterious island experience, as though through his involvement he had taken on the karmic effect potentiality of attacks from various expressions of the dark forces, as will generally be the case where we are facing all of creation and all the body types that are a part of it. We will experience resistance, disruption, interference, and where our agreements allow attacks and abuse. It seemed we were escorting him through a series of city streets, a number of which were real-side recreations of the very streets surrounding my former UK house, and it seemed we were indeed progressively heading toward my consciousness representing house that suggested a physical level engaging perhaps with the being who was assuming on the real side this outer cat form. For the streets would be ground level, more so the physical, and leading up to the house front door and ground floor of the house, which additionally represents the personal self-consciousness physical aspect. And it was as though that the cat's intention of stepping up more so on the physical, whatever earth-based body form he actually possessed, had him dark force targeted to a greater extent. And Val, Jeremy and I were assuring, as best as his agreements allowed, his safety, as this intention to step up physical level-wise filtered from the real side to his physical consciousness personal self. We were escorting him through my UK streets toward my house, that on reaching the house, this was representing then the moment of a physical level contact. But as we proceeded, the nature of the dark force attempted intervention took the form of various black wolves manifesting along our path, and necessary was it to prevent them from harming the cat we were escorting. At one point, a group of dark force agents, human in appearance, would enter the scene with the intentions also of assailing the cat, but rather than directly engaging with them, we would manifest golden coins in the air, and as they rained down on the would-be cat assailants, this would rather redirect their attentions from the cat, as they all would fall upon the gathering piles of coins in a demonstration of unadulterated greed. Despite our best efforts to keep the cat safe, he was somehow sequestered away from right under our noses, as though vanishing into the ethos, but impressions revealed it was by the hand of the darker forces. The scene would switch, and now the streets we were in had a more medieval look to them, and in the distance stood a large black ominous tower, and it was there that the cat had been taken. I would proceed from this point alone, and would assume the outer form of Gandalf the Grey Wizard from the movie trilogy Lord of the Rings, brandishing a magical staff and ascending the tower via a spiralling narrow pathway, that at the very top of the tower would be the stepping up being in his cat form that it was my intention to attempt the rescue of, as I said, within the parameters of agreement as set by the cat. I would never see the actual rescue effort, or indeed, if I was successful, as the scene would switch. A brief scene now involving Jeremy and myself constructing what appeared to be an advanced satellite of some kind. It would be connected to an equally as sophisticated computer, and we were applying all manner of data to the satellite, attaching in addition also a long tether that extended from its underside. No impressions would reveal the purpose that this satellite would serve, perhaps a means of broadcasting a signal or transmission of some kind, and then the scene would switch again. I found myself experiencing one of the idea agreements present in overall human consciousness. one of the many agreements that had been a dark force installed through the various means and mechanisms by which they can be. The overall human consciousness design is as agreement to the dark force reptilians control. The overall human experience then will be subjugation at the hands of the dark forces. This then is the foundation of human life. But as the dark forces desire to escalate their control and restriction of humanity, so these are ideas in addition to the foundation control that must also be agreed with and a consciousness installed. And as the dark forces now desire to depopulate or even completely genocide the human species, so they have been highly creative in conjuring up various options where, if agreed with, depopulation or complete eradication can be so, many of which I have shared over the years. All agreements in all consciousness will be in effect now in actuality, but the human consciousness affected body form mechanics afford only certain of the idea agreements as experience at any given moment, the agreements which are prominent within overall human consciousness. And for the simulated overall human experience to change, so must alternative ideas take a prominence, but always there will be a gradual transition, with the additional ideas of time and space taken into consideration. That a new human overall experience begins to roll out like a movie, the movie complete on the disc, but the body forms process the movie from start to culmination just as our DVD players would. And of course then, if we change the disc, if another agreement becomes prominent, a new movie begins to unfold, and only then will humanity see the effects, the movie's end, if the agreement is maintained long enough that it reach its culmination point. It seemed, in this case, and with this particular human overall experience potentiality, the dark forces had installed an agreement which would play out as the entirety of the planet Earth being gradually engulfed in darkness, and within this darkness all manner of twisted body types would dwell, though they seemed resigned to it, unable to move beyond the confines of the darkness. Humanity soon would become aware of this situation, that any contact with the darkness would have them at the mercy of the creatures it contained, and where the humans caught in it would be devoured. This would have all of humanity occupying progressively less of the planet in order to avoid contact with the ever-expanding, earth-encompassing blackness and the monsters that dwelled within it. Impressions suggested that the dark forces had in some way facilitated the means by which the lower astral could encroach upon the physical level Earth, for indeed all simulator life levels, although all are present in the nowness of the isness reality, the body form mechanics isolate the various life levels, and presented then is the illusion of separate dimensions made possible via the body vehicles. The equivalent of having an array of virtual reality headsets, each presenting a different position in creation, and yet the same overall isness everything real awareness is through it all. And as these various life levels are separated by a frequency, as each body vehicle is designed to decode and present the simulation of certain dimensions within the overall simulator, For two creational mechanic separated life levels to converge, so must the frequencies of them be brought into alignment. That effectively through the body forms designed for the frequency decoding of the physical level, they now also are decoding and providing the experience of the lower astral if the two-dimensional positions can be brought into a conjunction frequency-wise. This the dark forces had seemingly achieved, but it was a gradual alignment expressed here with the ever-spreading darkness of the lower astral onto the physical earth, containing all the various assorted twisted body forms prevalent within what is considered the most forbidding creational dimension and position. Perhaps this was a religious idea agreement that had become prominent, the consciousness installed notion and acceptance of the end times, where demons walk the earth, etc., as all these created ideas and stories will become as effected experiential actualities if embraced and become as the forerunning agreement in human consciousness. Very likely, the earth-based dark force individuals of any standing would have abandoned the earth during this situation, unless they were perhaps in no danger from what would very likely be just other expressions of the dark forces and the ill-intended, that which lurks in the lower astral, etc. For humanity that had survived up until this moment, time was running out. Less of the earth now presenting as a safe haven, and determined was a global countdown as provided until the earth became completely engulfed in the darkness, the physical level earth becoming one with the lower astral, and where no human would survive the murderous inclinations and compulsions of the twisted body forms now claiming dominion over the earth. I would not only be afforded this potential overall humanity experience possibility view, but be operating within its unfolding, to be participating rather than observing from aside the simulation situation real awareness position, which always is more conducive for recollection of the experience on awaking. For there would be specific areas within every continent that were the last to fall to the lower astral darkness, as the globally provided countdown reduced ever closer to zero. I would be present in one such area. The country wasn't revealed, but it seemed all survivors, those that had managed to evade the darkness, had congregated in the final few streets the darkness was yet to engulf. The timer reached zero, the earth, and including the country I was in, fell to darkness, and in a short order were all of humanity destroyed or devoured by the body types the lower astral harboured, now part of the physical earth level. There was one group of humans stationed in the now engulfed in a darkness country I was in, that were far more resilient and capable than most, able to evade the twisted lower astral creatures far more effectively. Since I was to remain in this situation yet a while seemingly, my real awareness afforded my simulated form all that was required that its survival be assured, made possible by virtue of my having no agreements pertaining to the various denizens of the lower astral that prevented that they could destroy me also. However, my survival methods would have seemed somewhat supernatural to other humans, as I flew through the darkened skies, warped through structures, etc., to the extent that the group of more formidable human survivors assumed me to be one of the lower astral creatures, and focused their attentions on my destruction. That not only did I have to defend myself from the twisted, inhuman body types, but from this group also, who was led by a particularly capable man. The human group would chase me relentlessly throughout what was now an extension of the lower astral. Ultimately, the leader would lay his hands upon me, and I would hurl him across the darkened terrain as if he were lighter than air. Seemed the group of humans were only chasing me under their leader's direction, with him now removed from the equation as I had thrown him as though miles across the landscape. They no longer had the compulsion to continue pursuit of me, and I would fade from the scene. The human group, and whoever else of humanity still surviving, left to their own devices, experiences of their own choosing in actuality, individuals who were fully in agreement with their consciousnesses, an overall human consciousness which had as its prominent agreement the situation I had just recounted, just one of many agreement potentialities, and whichever becomes a physical level manifest depends on which agreement is maintained in its prominence long enough that it become the overall human experience. In a final scene, I would find myself with a group of other individuals that impressions revealed were those on their respective processes of awareness. Present also would be an individual that further impressions unveiled as being a real guide, though in the form of a Gandalf the Grey Wizard. Interestingly, the very form I had assumed in the first scene myself, as I ascended the tower in my attempt to rescue the cat. We were standing on the threshold of entering a cave, but Gandalf the guide informed us that although imperative was it that we enter this cave, we would be unable unless we were very focused with our real awareness, aside from the consciousness of thought and emotion, nowness positions. I would be reminded of the real side experience as shared by Jeremy, where he was unable to enter the hollow earth if he harboured any fear, that to embrace such emotion, so would this effect as his fears being manifested, and prevent his ability to access the inner earth position. For this would be a similar situation, and although nothing was revealed as to the reason and purpose for the group to enter the cave, it evidently was essential that we do so, to engage with whatever or whomever lay within. And like Jeremy's experience, where the hollow earth had a kind of inbuilt security system, to harbour any thought or emotion ideas would have those very ideas made manifest, and our access to the cave be denied. For whatever thought or emotion ideas were created, it was as though, regardless of their nature, these very ideas would formulate a particular way and be as a preventative measure where cave entry was concerned. For indeed one of the group, unable to maintain his nowness real awareness focus, as he created a certain thought form ideas, these became as monstrous wolves, which then would drag him off and into the jungle surrounding our position. For as we operate in the nowness of our real awareness positions, we will operate in ways that make sense with life, via the creational oversight the real awareness has, where it knows exactly what to do in every situation and circumstance. The personal self, however, is far more limited, resigned to whatever skills and references it has collated in the current lifetime memory body only. And so, for the more delicate assignments, it is essential to operate from the real awareness, where it will see all the variables and handle all the particulars. In this case, it was as though whatever business we had within the cave demanded a real awareness standing that our actions be executed in the optimum making sense with life way. And if this real awareness standing wasn't assumed, if any being attempting to enter the cave was in a personal self-idea creating mode, so they would be denied access with what seemed to be a security measure in place. The generated ideas which remove an individual from the nowness of their real awareness, manifesting as creatures that drag them into the jungle. The rest of the group and myself would retain our nowness, beingness focuses. The security system of the cave wasn't triggered, and we proceeded to follow the guide in a Gandalf's form inside, though the experience would end at that point, and perhaps more may be revealed at a later moment as to what purpose we had within this particular cave.